My wife cheated with her boss, opened our marriage, regretted it when I fell for someone else. Hey, everyone. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who would turn to strangers on the internet for advice, but here I am. My wife and I have been together for 9 years and married for 7. We met in college and were each other's first and only. For a long time, I genuinely believed that made what we had rare and special. Looking back now, I realize I was probably the only one who felt that way. Things started changing when my wife got a new job. At first, she struggled to fit in. She's always been reserved, not the type to easily open up to people. I encouraged her to keep trying, and eventually she became close with a group of women from work. Most of them were single, divorced, or in relationships without marriage involved. At first, I was happy for her. She finally had friends. But then the nights out started, drinks after work, parties, spontaneous plans that didn't include me. Slowly, her behavior shifted, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I tried to talk to her about my concerns, but I was careful. I didn't want to come across as controlling or restrictive. Still, the changes started bleeding into our relationship, especially our intimacy. She was never one to initiate, but now she was either too tired or simply not in the mood. Around that time, her company hired a new manager. My wife and her friends took an immediate liking to him. At first, she only mentioned him casually, but before long she was bringing him up constantly, praising how he handled situations that had nothing to do with work. That's when I finally asked her directly why she seemed so fixated on him. She brushed it off and told me I was overthinking things. Then she asked me something that caught me completely off guard, whether I ever regretted not having more experience with other women. I told her no. I told her she was all I had ever wanted. For a split second, I thought I saw sadness flash across her face, but she quickly changed the subject. Not long after that, she brought up the idea of an open marriage. I was stunned. This wasn't the woman I married. I'm not particularly conservative, but this felt completely out of character for her. I refused at first and asked if this had anything to do with her manager. She denied it. Instead, she said she felt like she had missed out on life but didn't want to lose me, and that this would be the safer option. I warned her that she was playing with fire. In the end, against my better judgment, I agreed. We set rules. The most important one was that no one else would ever be brought into our home. For the next year, my wife went on dates, had one-night stands, and, unsurprisingly, ended up in a relationship with her manager. I tried to participate too. I went on a few dates, but it always felt wrong. I couldn't bring myself to have casual sex. My wife would ask if I was okay, but nothing about her behavior changed. Somewhere along the way, something inside me broke. That innocent, unquestioning love I once felt for her slowly disappeared, and it was tearing me apart. Then I met someone else. She was an incredible woman who had immigrated from South Korea. Conversation with her was effortless. She was sharp, funny, quick-witted, and her smile made it impossible to focus on anything else. One date turned into several, and eventually we became intimate. I had never experienced anything like it. For the first time in years, I felt desired, wanted, seen. At first, my wife seemed amused by it. She even called it cute. But as months passed, she started questioning my relationship with my lover. I reminded her that this had been her idea, and that she herself was in a full-blown relationship with a manager I had worried about from the start. She went quiet. It was obvious she wanted to say something, but couldn't bring herself to do it. That's when she started changing. She began coming home early, cooking dinner, cleaning the house obsessively. She'd show up at my workplace with lunch. She started initiating intimacy again. Under different circumstances, all of this would have made me overjoyed. But it didn't. I barely responded to her advances, and when I did, it felt mechanical, like I was just getting it over with. Whatever I had once felt for my wife was gone, and I could tell she knew it. I asked her what caused the sudden shift. What changed? She told me she just wanted to show me that she loved me, that she was happy with me. I couldn't help it, I laughed. I asked her about her friends, about her manager, about the countless nights and one-night stands. She didn't answer. She went to bed crying. The next day, when I got home, she was waiting for me. She told me she wanted to close the marriage. That opening it had been a terrible mistake. That she regretted everything and wanted us to be the center of our relationship again. I asked her to be honest about what had started all of this in the first place. And finally, she told me the truth. Her friends had planted the idea. They constantly talked about their sexual freedom and experiences. Her manager encouraged that lifestyle and told her she deserved to live freely. It started as an emotional affair and only became physical once the marriage was open, as if that somehow made it better. She described it like being drunk behind the wheel of a speeding car. Thrilling, intoxicating, and ultimately devastating. She said she finally understood that she never needed comparison, that what we had was unique and special, and that she destroyed our marriage and any chance at a future together. I told her I might never be able to see her as my wife again. She broke down completely. I held her while she cried herself to sleep on the couch. Since then, she's quit her job, cut off her friends, blocked her manager, and told me she's willing to spend the rest of her life trying to earn her place as my wife again. But I haven't cut contact with my lover. The truth is, she makes me feel like a man again, like I can take on the world. And my wife hasn't made me feel that way in a long time. I don't know what to do anymore. I still don't know if it's possible to get that special feeling back with my wife. Part of me desperately wants it to return. But the truth is, my lover was the one who pulled me out when I was at my absolute lowest. I don't say that lightly. Please, I genuinely need advice. I should also mention that we have our very first marriage counseling session in just a couple of hours, and I honestly have no idea how that's going to go. Edit, wow. I didn't expect this kind of response. Thank you all so much for the support and the advice. I'll definitely post an update after a therapy session because, frankly, that alone deserves its own post. In the meantime, I'll try to answer some of the questions that keep coming up. 1. My lover is not married. She is, however, in an open relationship. 2. My intentions regarding my marriage are still unclear. As much as I love my wife, I don't trust her yet. At the same time, I find myself unable to fully let go because of everything we've built together over the years. The reason I agreed to counseling was to see if I can reach a decision with a clear mind and finally step off this endless cycle of indecision. 3. I didn't ask to see my wife's phone at first because I didn't want to see proof. The mental images alone were already destroying me. Seeing an actual picture or message would have shattered whatever pieces I had left. There's something else I forgot to mention. This morning, right after I got out of the shower, I saw my wife standing there, holding my phone. Her hand was shaking as she read a message that had just come through. I didn't say anything. I simply took the phone from her. The message was from my lover. It said, "Good morning, handsome. I slept in your t-shirt last night because I miss going to bed and waking up in your arms. I miss starting the day with a kiss from you." That message hit my wife hard. Ever since, she's been shadowing me nonstop. Even when I went out for a jog, she followed me. In 10 years together, she had never once gone jogging with me. Not a single time. Some people asked how I met my lover, so here it is. I met her on an evening when my wife was out on one of her dates. Around that time, I spent most of my evenings alone in a bookstore just to avoid sitting in an empty house. As I was leaving, I noticed a short, stocky man following a woman and yelling at her. When I saw him grab her arm and violently spin her around, I stepped in without even thinking. I practiced judo, nothing impressive, but it was enough to restrain him. In the process, I accidentally dislocated his wrist. It turned out he had been fired from his job for sexually harassing her, and he didn't take it well. After everything calmed down, she insisted on buying me a coffee as a thank you. I agreed. As for how she felt about the open marriage at first, she was hesitant. She was very clear that she didn't want to be a homewrecker. But after she learned the full extent of what my wife had done, she stopped holding back. She stopped pretending this was something casual. Someone in the comments summed it up in a way that hit me harder than anything else I've read so far. You have two versions of this story you can tell your grandchildren. Either you saved their grandmother from a violent man and she fell into your arms, or your wife took a year off to experiment while you were expected to be okay with it. Choose. And that's where I'm stuck. Update 1. We had our first therapy session today. The therapist seemed experienced and genuinely neutral, which surprised me in a good way. She didn't take sides and actually appeared invested in helping us figure things out. Even though it was our very first session, my wife decided to lay everything out. She admitted that her group of friends made her start questioning her life choices. Being with her first boyfriend, marrying young, never having other experiences, according to them, she had missed out. These were women who talked endlessly about their adventures, their freedom, their stories. Ironically, most of them were divorced, and none of them were married. The therapist pointed out that this kind of influence can be extremely damaging to a marriage because of the completely different mindsets involved. My wife agreed and went on to explain that when the new manager started paying attention to her, some of these friends encouraged her to see where it goes and treat it as a form of self-discovery. She said she felt guilty, at least at first, which is why she claimed nothing physical happened until one of her divorced friends suggested an open marriage as a solution. She was told it was a loophole, something modern couples do, and that some marriages even come out stronger afterward. So after convincing me to open the marriage, something she now says she deeply regrets, her so-called adventure began. According to her, it was intoxicating and blinding but hollow. It didn't have the substance of what we had built together over the years. Still, she kept going, telling herself it was just an experience. She admitted she saw the pain in my eyes, but pushed it aside, framing it as temporary discomfort. She said she would never forgive herself for it. What really shook her was when she noticed a change in me. At first, she assumed that since I was going on dates, I would eventually adjust and accept the situation. But everything shifted once my lover became a consistent presence in my life. She noticed I started smiling again for no apparent reason. My eyes lit up when I got messages. I'd leave the room cheerfully to take calls. That's when she said she started feeling a pit in her stomach. Panic attacks followed. She went back to her friends for reassurance, but they brushed it off as normal. Until the same divorced friend, the one who originally suggested the open marriage, casually remarked that it looked like my lover genuinely made me happy. That sentence nearly broke her. The realization that another woman, not his wife, was the source of my joy hit her so hard she said she almost passed out. That was the moment reality finally crashed down on her. She begged her friends to help her win me back. Instead, they told her that if she couldn't handle it, she shouldn't have opened the marriage in the first place. That's when she realized these people were toxic. Not just bad influences, but an actual threat to our marriage and the life we built. From that moment on, she became determined to win me back at any cost. I didn't share much during the session, but I was honest about one thing. My lover is still in the picture. The therapist was very direct. She said no real resolution could be reached as long as my lover remained involved. She suggested we schedule another session after tomorrow. She also mentioned that staying with your first partner for this long is uncommon, but not impossible, and that most marriages can survive storms if both people are willing. I got the sense she wanted us to become one of her success stories. Sorry for the long update, but I wanted to be thorough. A lot of people are asking what I mean when I say my lover makes me feel like a man. What I mean is this. When I've had a hard day, I'm not met with cold indifference. I'm met with a warm hug and someone who actually listens. When my insecurities creep in, she reassures me that nothing is beyond my reach. This might sound sexist, and if it does, I apologize. But she believes women excel at things men often struggle with: nurturing, compassion, emotional grounding. She once told me that a gentle heart can calm even a raging volcano. She believes she should rule the bedroom and keep it exciting, but never belittle me or invade my space elsewhere. In her view, men have fewer needs than women. And once those needs are met, a man would slay dragons for the woman he loves. She believes in equal pay and mutual respect, just not the extremes people argue over today. I think a lot of this comes from her culture. Edit 2. Some commenters pointed out that women like her are rare, especially in the West. And honestly, I agree. We're talking about a tiny percentage of highly sought-after women, and somehow, I found one. Then there's my wife. She had everything: stability, love, commitment. And she let outsiders convince her to put the one man who truly loved her on a shelf while chasing validation from someone who didn't care about her at all. Now I have to ask myself, am I about to repeat her mistake? Am I going to discard a woman who looks at me with only me in her eyes just to cling to an image of who my wife used to be? Because if I do, I might lose both of them. A woman who makes a man feel like a man doesn't stay single for long. And if I choose wrong, I'll probably be back here again. Update 2. First of all, thank you to everyone who reached out. I'm sorry I couldn't respond to every message, inbox, or comments, but I've read them all. Your support has meant more to me than you probably realize. At this point, my life feels like a full-blown episode of Jerry Springer. I've moved out and into an apartment owned by my brother. He has several properties and offered to let me stay for free, but I refused. I needed to at least feel like I was standing on my own 2 feet. Now for what I've uncovered. During our second counseling session, I asked some of the questions many of you suggested. One of them was whether she was absolutely sure nothing physical happened before the marriage was opened. She stared at the floor and begged me not to make her say it. She said that if she said it out loud, it would destroy us. After pushing, she finally admitted the truth. They never had sex, but they did touch themselves in front of each other. Her manager convinced her that since it wasn't physical, it technically wasn't cheating. He framed it as them appreciating each other's bodies and sharing something intimate without crossing the line. I was completely floored. She started shaking uncontrollably, hyperventilating, snot running from her nose as she cried and apologized over and over. Even the counselor looked stunned. At one point, my wife dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around my legs, begging me to forgive her. Then I asked her what really changed her view of him. She explained that once she started distancing herself from that friend group, his behavior toward her shifted. One evening, while leaving work, she passed his office and overheard him talking to another male colleague about her. He said he was surprised at how easy she was to get, that she was living proof you can't trust the quiet ones. When the colleague asked if he actually had feelings for her, he laughed and said she was just a pleasant distraction. He had no intention of leaving his fiancée. He even said this was just something he needed to get out of his system because the only woman who ever truly understood him was his fiancée, and he wasn't going to lose her. He added that he felt bad for me, but you snooze, you lose. Hearing that, my wife said she finally understood what she was to him. Just meat, nothing more. The realization, combined with the fact that she had betrayed me for something so cheap, made her feel physically sick. She left work and vomited in the parking lot. Her first thoughts, she said, were my name and what have I done? Please forgive me. I then asked her if she loved him, and when she stopped loving me, she looked me straight in the eyes, through tears, and said she never stopped loving me. Honestly, that somehow made it worse. She said he was just different, that she mistook novelty for love and now sees how foolish she was. She squeezed my arm with surprising strength and told me she missed us, the connection we had before all of this. She even suggested we move away and start fresh, just the two of us like it was meant to be. I told her that wouldn't be fair to my lover, and that I needed time away to process everything. She completely broke down. She sobbed uncontrollably, saying incoherent things, clinging to me like I was about to vanish. It took both me and the counselor a long time to calm her down. Eventually, the counselor managed to convince her that time apart might actually help us heal. I wish the update ended there. When we got home, I started packing. While I was doing that, my wife received a video call on her laptop. It was one of her former friends, crying hysterically. Apparently, after my wife resigned, this friend and the manager started a fling of their own. She ended up having a pregnancy scare. That's when he turned into a completely different person. To make it worse, she had a boyfriend, someone she saw a real future with. The only reason she had the fling, she said, was curiosity. Funny how that seems to be a recurring theme. Her boyfriend found out after discovering emails between her and the manager discussing the possible pregnancy. The manager accused her of trying to baby trap him. Of course, the boyfriend left her. She reached out to my wife because she believed my wife had somehow saved her marriage and was desperately seeking advice. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed my things and left. I've been staying at the apartment ever since. Once again, thank you all for your thoughts and advice. They've helped me stay sane through all of this. Update 3. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who reached out, whether to give advice, share your own stories, or simply listen while I vented. It truly means more than I can put into words. A lot has happened. The former friend who had the pregnancy scare was, in fact, pregnant. Unfortunately, the stress of losing her boyfriend and being publicly humiliated by the affair caused her to miscarry. That loss pushed her over the edge. She went scorched earth on the manager. She exposed everything, to upper management and to his fiancée. Out of curiosity, I looked up his fiancée on Facebook. She's basically the poster child for good person. Small town girl, special needs teacher, homebody, family-oriented. My first thought was, what the hell is a man like him doing risking someone like her? Why men like that end up with women like her will always be one of life's great mysteries. The former friend eventually contacted me. She wanted my version of events as part of the evidence she was collecting against him, but asked to meet in person. We both had recent COVID tests, so I agreed. The moment I saw her, I knew she was broken. Dark circles under her eyes, bloodshot irises. She clearly hadn't slept and was haunted by her own thoughts. She thanked me for meeting her and immediately apologized for the role she played in my wife's adventure. It turns out she and my wife spoke again, and that's how she learned I had moved out. She didn't deflect blame. She wanted to take responsibility. That's why she insisted on meeting face to face. I thanked her, but asked why she was going this far. She told me losing both a child and the man she loved fundamentally changed her. She said she can barely look at herself in the mirror without disgust. Sleep barely comes because all she sees is her ex's face the day he found out. It was clear she hated herself. If I'm being honest, that meeting felt like a form of self-punishment for her. She explained that because fraternization between coworkers is a breach of conduct, and especially because he was in a position of influence, he will most likely be fired and possibly blacklisted from the industry entirely. The same might happen to her, and she said she's accepted that. She got my side of the story, apologized again, and left. Later, I needed to pick up a few things from the house. I chose a time I thought my wife wouldn't be home. Unfortunately, she was. What surprised me was seeing most of our wedding photos laid out on the coffee table. She was sitting there, staring at them, crying. She tried to hug me. I gently pushed her aside. She offered to make me lunch. I told her I wasn't hungry and that I wouldn't be long, just grabbing a few things so I could move forward. She said she had something to show me. She pulled out her phone and showed me a message she'd received 2 days earlier from her former manager. It came from a new number she had blocked his old one. He was furious, berating her for helping expose him to upper management and his fiancée. She told me she got the idea from Chump Lady and Marriage Builders. Her thinking was that exposing the secret stripped it of its power and might give us a fighting chance. I told her I was glad she found the courage to do that. But I also told her it changed nothing between us. I let her know I would be stopping marriage counseling and switching to individual counseling instead. She began sobbing softly and said she understood. I know I'm supposed to feel either relief or rage now that actions are finally being taken. But I feel nothing. And I know that isn't normal, which is exactly why I want individual counseling, not couples counseling. At my brother's recommendation, I've also spoken to a divorce lawyer, just to be safe. As of now, I'm not willing to fight for this marriage. And I think my wife senses that. Before I left, she tried to initiate intimacy. When I refused, she snapped. She yelled, asking what my lover does for me that she can't. What does my lover give me that she can't? Her voice was so loud I'm sure the neighbors heard her when she said that whatever it was I wanted, she, my wife, would do it. I shook my head and told her that if she still couldn't understand the answer after everything that's happened, then it was clear where our marriage is headed. Then I left. That's where I am right now. Once again, thank you all for your help.